iFour Technolab Private Limited, an ISO 9001-2015 certified and leading sustainable IT service provider. Presents tutorial of smart contract using Solidity. The purpose of this course is to give you complete understanding and hands of experience with smart contracting using Solidity for blockchain technology. In Chapter 3, Setting Environment for Solidity, covers an overview of Solidity environment setup and demystifies various Solidity jargons. We are going to discuss the following topics: Solidity Introduction, layout of a Solidity source file, setting up programming environments remix, setting up Parity, setting up Remix IDE for Solidity development. What is Solidity? Solidity is a high-level, object-oriented language for smart contract implementation. Smart contracts are programs that govern account behavior within the state of Ethereum. Solidity was influenced by C++, Python, and JavaScript and is intended to target the Ethereum virtual machine. You can generate contracts like voting, crowdfunding, blind auctions, and multi-signature wallets with Solidity. You should use the recently published version of Solidity when you deploy contracts. This is because there is a regular introduction of breaking changes as well as new features and bug fixes. A Solidity source file layout. Source files may include an arbitrary amount of contract definitions, directives on if you want definitions, directives on imports, and directives on pragma. Pragmas. The keyword pragma is used to enable certain characteristics or checks on the compiler. A pragma directive is always local to a source file, so if you want to enable it in your entire project, you need to add the pragma to all your documents. If you import another file, you do not automatically apply the pragma from that file to the import file. Version pragma. Source files can, and should, be AND with a version pragma to reject compilation with future compiler versions that might introduce incompatible changes. We try to keep these to an absolute minimum, and introduce them in a way that changes in semantics also require changes in the syntax, but this is not always possible. Because of this, it is always a good idea to read through the changelog at least for releases that contain breaking changes. These releases always have versions of form 0.x.0 or x.0.0. The version pragma is used as follows: pragma solidity 0.5.2. A source file with the line above does not compile with a compiler earlier than version 0.5.2, and it also does not work on a compiler starting from version 0.6.0. This second condition is added by using caret. This is because there will be no breaking changes until version 0.6.0, so you can always be sure that your code compiles the way you intended. The exact version of the compiler is not fixed, so that bug fix releases are still possible. It is possible to specify more complex rules for the compiler version. These follow the same syntax used by NPM. Note: using the version pragma does not change the version of the compiler. It also does not enable or disable features of the compiler. It just instructs the compiler to check whether its version matches the one required by the pragma. If it does not match, the compiler issues an error. Experimental pragma. The second pragma is the experimental pragma. It can be used to enable features of the compiler or language that are not yet enabled by default. The following experimental pragmas are currently supported. ABI encode of 2. The new ABI encoder can encode and decode arbitrarily nested arrays and structs. It produces less optimal code. The optimizer for this part of the code is still under development, and has not received as much testing as the old encoder. You can activate it using Pragma Experimental ABI encode of 2. SMT checker. This component has to be enabled when the Solidity compiler is built, and therefore it is not available in all Solidity binaries. The build instructions explain how to activate this option. It is activated for the Ubuntu PPA releases in most versions, but not for SOLCJS, the Docker images, Windows binaries or the statically built Linux binaries. If you use Pragma Experimental SMT checker, then you get additional safety warnings that are obtained by querying an SMT solver. The component does not yet support all features of the Solidity language, and likely outputs many warnings. In case it reports unsupported features, the analysis may not be fully sound. What is Remix IDE for Solidity development? What is Remix? Remix is a powerful, open-source tool that helps you write Solidity contracts straight from the browser. Written in JavaScript, Remix supports both usage in the browser and locally. Remix also supports testing, debugging and deploying smart contracts and much more. Follow the below steps to install Remix locally. Step 1. You can download the recent package from here. Step 2. Extract the downloaded zip file into a directory on your computer. Step 3. Open the Remix folder in PowerShell window, or terminal, or in command prompt. Step 4. Runs npm install command to start the installation. It will take some time to install successfully. So once installation completed successfully, then after we have to run 2 different commands for starting the Remix IDE. Step 5. Run the npm run watch command. As you can see, server started now. Step 6. Runs npx live server command. After completing the process, you will see that Remix IDE run on localhost 8080 port. It will take few seconds to load. Now you can see here, Remix IDE screen, it's successfully connected. You can install the plugin as you want through the screen, only you need to activate the plugin. For now, let's activate some plugin that we need. You can see the compile and sample Solidity program. After compile, you can see that we deployed the contract. That's it for now. The Remix IDE. Using the in-browser Remix IDE. You can access the Remix IDE from your web browser without any special installation. Visit remix.ethereum.org, and you will receive a full IDE to compile, run and debug your smart contracts with a code editor and various panels. You're going to have a default ballot contract to play with. Remix IDE layout. Icon panel. Click to modify the plugin in the side panel. Side panel. Most plugins will have their GUI here, but not all. Main panel. This was only for editing documents in the old layout. In the tabs, you can compile plugins or files for the IDE. Terminal, where you see the results of your GUI interactions. You can also run scripts. Icon panel at page load. When loading Remix, the default icon panel displays these icons which display on the screen. Everything in the Remix is now a plugin, so it's very essential for the plugin manager. Every basic task in the Remix was separated into the tabs on the old layout. These tabs are now plugins. But every moment the page load is tedious to activate a half a dozen plugins, or however many you use. Remix IDE continued. The home page is in the main panel tab. By pressing the Remix logo at the top of the icon panel, you can also get there. Environments. To load a collection of plugins by clicking on one of the environment buttons. We currently have a button for Solidity and a button for Viper and Viper. You can save your environment in the future. To see all the plugins, go to the icon panel Plugin Manager by selecting the plugin. The environment buttons are time savers, so you don't have to go to the Plugin Manager to get started whenever you load the page. Plugin Manager. To make Remix flexible to integrate improvements into its functionality, and to integrate Remix into other projects, for instance, yours, Remix Developer now created it all a plugin. This implies you're only loading the features you need. It also implies that, as your demands change, you need an area to switch off and on plugins. In the Plug Manager, all this occurs. Also, the Plugin Manager is where you go when you create your plugin and you want to load your plugin into Remix. In that case, at the top of the Plugin Manager panel, you would click on the Connect. Click on Plugin Manager panel, you would click on the Connect to a local plugin link. Remix IDE continued. Themes. So you like to work with a dark theme or a dull theme on Remix, or just another theme you're looking at now? Go to the Settings tab and lots of Bootstrap-based topics are selected at the bottom. File Explorer. To access the File Explorers, click the File Explorers icon. The File Explorer lists all the files stored in your browser by default. In the browser directory, you can see them. The File Explorer can always rename, remove or add new files. Note that all the Solidity files you wrote will be permanently deleted by clearing the browser storage. You can use Remix to prevent this, which allows you to store and synchronize files with your local computer in the browser. We'll begin by looking at the top left icons from left to right. Create a new file. It will create a new untitled Sol file in Remix. Add local file. It allows you to select files from the local file system and import them to the Remix browser storage. Publish to Gist. Publishes all files in a gist from the browser folder. Gist API has changed in 2018, requiring users to be authenticated to be able to post a gist. Click this connection to the configuration of GitHub tokens and select the new token generation. Then just visit the checkbox to create gists and create a new token. Then click Save in Remix, right panel, tab Settings. You should be able to use the purpose now. Copy to another Remix instance. Enables you to copy files from the browser storage to another instance, URL, of Remix. Connect your file system to Remix. Allows to sync between allows to sync between Remix and your local file system. About a Remix IDE continued. Settings. To get to settings, click the gear at the very bottom of the icon panel. You can find a link to the homepage, if you closed it, as well as a link to our Gitter channel. And for you aesthetes out there, we now have a rather large list of themes. Another important setting. Text wrap controls if the text in the editor should be wrapped. Enable optimization defines if the compiler should enable optimization during compilation. Enabling this option saves execution gas. It is useful to enable optimization for contracts ready to be deployed in production, but could lead to some inconsistencies when debugging such a contract. The Remix IDE continued. Solidity Editor. The Remix editor recompiles the code each time the current file is changed or another file is selected. It also provides syntax highlighting map to Solidity keywords. It displays opened files as tabs. Compilation warning and error are displayed in the gutter. Remix saves the current file continuously, 5 seconds after the last changes. Plus or minus on the top left corner enable you to increase, decrease the font size of the editor. Remix IDE continued. Terminal. Features, available in the terminal. It integrates a JavaScript interpreter and the Web3 object. It enables the execution of the JavaScript which interacts with the current context. Note that Web3 is only available if the web provider or injected provider mode is selected. It displays important actions made while interacting with the Remix IDE, that is, sending a new transaction. It displays transactions mined in the current context. You can choose to display all transactions or only transactions that refer to the contracts Remix knows. Example, transaction created from the Remix IDE. It allows searching for the data and clearing the logs from the terminal. The Remix IDE continued. What is Parity? Parity Ethereum supports the state-orientated programming of smart contracts with the Solidity programming language for the Ethereum blockchain. The wallet contains an integrated Solidity development environment allowing you to write, compile, and deploy contracts. How to set up Parity? Follow the below steps to set up Parity. Step 1. Go to this page. Step 2. Download parity.exe and run it. Step 3. Go to this page. Step 4. Download and install Parity UI for Ethereum client. Step 5. Launch Parity UI with your app launcher or in a terminal with Parity UI. Step 6. Parity Ethereum page appears. That's it. That's it in this video. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for our next video.